cell phone in his pocket. Shannon? What do you want, Ryan? Did you change the locks? What do you think? It seems kinda like you changed the locks. Really? Wow, look at the brain trust we got over here today. Ryan took the phone away from his ear and stared at it. This kind of venom in Shannon's voice wasn't entirely out of the blue, but he couldn't figure out what he'd done today. Shannon, why did you change the locks? Why didn't you stay at the rink so my fucking process server could find you? The pieces of the puzzle fit together with the sudden clarity of figuring out the right move on the ice ahead of anyone else. Except this time, he was trailing the play. Shannon, are you divorcing me? No shit, Sherlock. I've only been trying to talk to you about it for the last goddamn month. Ryan stared at the phone again. You have? Shannon hung up on him. He thought for a second about all of the teammates and friends he'd known who'd gotten divorced, and how you probably weren't supposed to lock your spouse out of the house without warning. He thought about equitable distribution and how humiliating it would feel, telling a judge, well, she locked me out, so... He had never really wanted to move to New Hampshire in the first place, but it was close to Shannon's family. The thing was, he'd never even been particularly fond of the house in the first place. It felt like more work than it had been worth, the constant negotiations with Shannon about how much of his awards and medals and memorabilia he could keep anywhere except the basement, about how much space in the garage he was allowed to use up for his workshop. Maybe he could just let her have the house. Every time they fought, it was a reminder that they had started dating when they were 18 years old and had just kept going, even though it became clear, the longer things went on, that they had really different priorities. Shannon had wanted the big house in Newfields to be close to her family. And at the time, Ryan had wanted what Shannon wanted. She'd deserved it after years of living far away from her family and friends in the kinds of places she never would have chosen if she hadn't married a hockey player. It wasn't until later that Ryan had realized exactly how much he hated living in New Hampshire in a house that was far too goddamn big for two people. He called her again. What, Ryan? Shannon, just to be clear, you're really divorcing me? Really, completely, seriously divorcing me? Yes, Ryan. But what about all of my stuff? We can figure out a time for you to come and pick it up. But I'm over this. I told you I didn't want you to start coaching. I've waited years to have a life without fucking hockey, but that is my life, Shan. It's always been my life. Not like this. Not like you get. Or did you forget that I made birthday brunch reservations for today? You knew I had a game. You couldn't have gotten the assistant coach to do it, Ryan. It's your 45th birthday. It's Pee-wee fucking hockey. I'm sick of always being reminded where I stand in your priorities and how as long as it's something hockey-related, I'm at the bottom. And it's clear you don't understand this at all. We don't have anything else to talk about right now. I'll text you times and dates if you want to pick up your stuff. Ryan thought about asking her to throw down a bag of clothes to him or something, but the back of his neck felt hot and sweaty. He hadn't fought much on the ice when he was a player, but the few times he'd gotten angry enough to do it, he'd felt like this, like a teapot whose lid was about to explode with the force of the pressure built up under it. Instead, he said, "Okay," and hung up again. He stood there in the driveway, not his driveway anymore, and looked at the house. It was an ugly McMansion, and he could admit that now that Shannon had kicked him out. He couldn't quite figure out what he was feeling. It wasn't sad, and it wasn't angry. Maybe resigned was the closest word for it. Maybe this is what it felt like to not care about losing anymore. He'd never felt like that in his life.